I went to meet the algorithm's creator at the office of his company, Tech.
Do you mind showing me how the technology works a little bit?
Yeah.
Can we try me? So these are my Russian brethren, my cousins. Is it ranked in order by who they think looks the most like me? This is like a 60-year-old with a machine gun. Another guy with a gun.
There are some similarity. Sometimes it's difficult to say why neural network works this way, but it works.
Artyom programmed a neural network that approaches face finding differently than others. He fed it thousands of image matches, and after about 6 months of training, voila, it learned to read faces. It's easy to imagine what the FBI or its Russian counterpart, the FSB, could do with this kind of technology.
So it's a little bit controversial, right? Because anyone can identify you now out of the crowd.
I would say that the implications of this very scary.
I think FSB is searching us right there.
I'm saying like companies, yeah, big companies, corporations, and governments definitely know everything about you. But for random people, this makes it much easier.
You have to be careful if you go outside in the street or in a Facebook or any other social network. You've done it.
Yep.
You're open to be recognized.
This idea that you're not anonymous when you walk the street anymore. Somebody can just snap your photo and identify who you are. You must have thought about that when you were developing the technology.
When we were developing, we were thinking only about accuracy and how cool it is. But privacy finished when you have smartphones with you, because they can track all the information about you. It's a battle between technology and privacy. My personal guess that technology will win.
I used to be one of those people, like, I got nothing to hide, I'm just a student. But I was very wrong. They're targeting everyone. As long as you're going out of your house, you're being surveilled.
In Xinjiang, in northwestern China, 13 million Turkic Muslims are already enduring extraordinary suppression at the hands of the Chinese government. And authorities there are building a surveillance state to be able to track their every move.
Across the northwestern province of Xinjiang, an estimated 1 million Chinese Muslims have vanished into a vast network of detention centers for what China calls re-education.
The region is now under what's probably the most intense government surveillance in the world.
Every 200 meters would have a police checkpoint. And then on top of that, there are all these checkpoints at public places wherever you go. If you're Uyghur, they stop you. They would just say, "Where's your ID? I want to check your ID." They would punch in the ID number and then they would see everything about you.
One tool at the heart of Xinjiang's surveillance system is the IJOP, or the Integrated Joint Operations Platform. The IJOP has an app that's used by police and government officials to track extraordinary amounts of personal information about individuals, ranging from their religious habits to their blood type.
Human Rights Watch got a hold of a copy of the app and used a technique called reverse engineering to look at the source code, basically the design of the app. This is what it looks like when an officer pulls up an individual's profile. They enter the person's name, ID number, ethnicity, and then the officer takes a photo of the person's ID card to see if that matches the person's face. As you scroll, you see more information is being collected from the person, including their address, how tall they are, their blood type, their educational level, their occupation, their political affiliation, information about their car, license plate, driver's name, driver's ID card number.
On its surface, most of this information looks like standard fare for police, but as we dig deeper into the app, we can see that ordinary, routine, legal behavior is being treated by authorities as suspect.
This is what it looks like when the IJOP system has flagged someone whose phone number the system has lost track of. The IJOP system sends an alert to government officials to go and investigate the reason why that phone number has gone missing, and note if this person is suspicious and requires further investigation. Or here's another example. This is a report that the IJOP system sends to government officials about someone who used an unusual amount of electricity. The report includes the date in which the unusual amount of electricity used was logged by the system, how much electricity was used, what was the meter reading, and what is the usual range of electricity used. Then the government official is required to go and investigate this person.
If you use WhatsApp or Viber or Telegram, that might be considered suspicious. If you go at the back door of your house instead of the front, the police might turn up to investigate. The list goes on. The information from the app feeds into a central system and combines with information from other surveillance systems, including CCTV cameras that rely on facial recognition software, and even Wi-Fi sniffers that are used as people walk through checkpoints to pull information off their phones. The IJOP system aggregates all this data about people, flags those it deems suspicious, and sends alerts to nearby officials. These dubious criteria are being used to identify large numbers of people, many of whom are then arbitrarily locked up.
In total, I spent about a month in different jails. I wasn't officially accused of anything or charged with anything. The official paperwork said something like, I was arrested under the suspicion of disrupting the societal order. Then after that, I was basically under house arrest, because they marked my ID card.
It's time for the Chinese government to stop persecuting perfectly legal behavior. It's time for the Chinese government to end its repression of Turkic Muslims in Xinjiang, and it's time for it to dismantle this surveillance state.
When Elias Brotberger goes to work, he doesn't need ID, and he doesn't need money. In fact, much of what he needs to get through the day is hidden right there, just below the surface, in his hand.
You like to touch it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, weird. Yeah, it's like a grain of rice.
Yeah, a grain of rice.
Embedded in his hand is a microchip that serves as his keys, his ID, and his wallet.
Yeah, it's all in chip, so I use it like to get around the building.
Buy snacks.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's buy some snacks.
Exactly.
So I can't open it.
No.
Okay.
So what I need to do is I need to first blip my chip, and it will log me in, and from there I get access to.
In Sweden, the microchips are already here.
The microchip implants use the same technology that's in contactless credit cards,
which have made cash pretty much obsolete in Sweden.
No cash.
At this tech fair, a chipping event for those on the cutting edge, merging their hands with this new technology.
I thought it would be fun, right?
Watch me. Follow me. The victim, he doesn't know what I'm going to do. I just tapped his ass. He's got a PayPass card in his pocket and transactions approved. So be careful.
Un grupo de delincuentes está vendiendo en el lado oscuro de la red un aparatico que puede clonar hasta 15 tarjetas bancarias contactless por segundo. El dispositivo fue diseñado por el grupo criminal CC Buddies y lo venden en bitcoins, al equivalente de $825. Es más pequeño que un smartphone y pesa solo 70 gramos. En manos de los delincuentes, pasaría desapercibido en lugares abarrotados como el metro, donde un ladrón podría acercarse al bolsillo de tu pantalón y clonar todas tus tarjetas de crédito en un instante. Cuenta con 3 horas de autonomía y viene con 20 tarjetas en blanco de regalo. El robo de tarjetas bancarias contactless no puede hacerse a una distancia mayor de unos 10 centímetros, pero si los ladrones consiguen clonarlas, lo más probable es que la víctima no se entere hasta que llegue su estado de cuenta. Es que la mayoría de los bancos no pide el PIN para compras pequeñas con NFC, pero sí hay un límite máximo de compras que se pueden hacer sin PIN el mismo día. Un dispositivo como este, equipado con antena NFC, puede leer y copiar los siguientes datos: número de tarjeta, fecha de expiración, titular de la tarjeta e histórico de transacciones realizadas, no solo mediante NFC, sino también las verificadas con el chip de plástico, algo que entra ya en el terreno no solo del robo, sino también de la violación de la privacidad.
Not everyone is racing to get chipped.
Feel less human. I will feel like a robot.
It's so much more data can go into this, when it's in your body.
There's no central registry tracking how many people are chipped, but biohacker Hannes Wellblood estimates between 5 and 10,000.
In the future, do you think everyone is going to be chipped?
I think it'll be voluntary, but I am certainly convinced that millions of people will find it very, very valuable to have a smart device under their skin.
Human microchipping may be our future, but in Sweden, it's already reality.
40 millones de móviles serán rastreados en toda España para tratar de atajar la propagación del COVID-19. El Gobierno busca conocer si tras la entrada en vigor de las medidas de distanciamiento social aumentan o disminuyen los movimientos entre territorios y si hay áreas con una concentración de personas que pueda comprometer la capacidad sanitaria. El proyecto encargado al INE no localiza de forma individual, sino de forma agregada y anónima, y sigue la metodología de un estudio de desplazamientos que empezó Estadística en noviembre. La Generalitat Valenciana ya estaba trabajando en un proyecto similar.
Cada teléfono móvil tiene asociada un área de residencia, que digamos que es donde el móvil duerme por la noche. Y luego calculan lo que se denomina el área de destino, es decir, el área más frecuente donde se detecta el teléfono fuera de su residencia.
En el estudio participan Telefónica, Vodafone y Orange, que ofrecerán datos de 3.200 áreas del país con poblaciones entre 5.000 y 50.000 habitantes. La iniciativa no necesita un permiso específico de los usuarios en el actual contexto de interés público. Lo más importante, según los expertos, es el control de esta información.
No pueda ser hackeable por parte de terceros, el aseguramiento de que no se va a producir una cesión entre los distintos operadores que estén alrededor de esa aplicación, que cuando la epidemia finalice estos datos se borren.
También la Comisión Europea quiere que los principales operadores comunitarios cedan datos para anticipar la evolución de la epidemia. En Corea del Sur, el gobierno decidió geolocalizar a personas infectadas en una aplicación de móvil para que otras pudieran ver las zonas con mayores brotes.
It would be able to read your text messages, it would be able to listen into your telephone calls.
It's like a spy devices. It can catch around 1,200 numbers per minute.
We're just being infringed upon every step of the way. It's just another invasion of privacy.
So we're here at the Ecuadorian embassy where Julian Assange has been holed up for the past 3 years. The last few times I've been here, I've observed some really strange signals coming from mobile phone towers.
It's just after 7 o'clock on a January evening 2 years ago, and barrister Jeffrey Robertson is visiting his client, Julian Assange.
Can I get you something, a tea or coffee?
Mr. Robertson was providing advice to Assange in relation to his US espionage charges. The meeting was legally privileged, and we shouldn't be able to hear it or see it.
It's a serious crime in European law. It's invasion of privacy. It's breach of confidential relationship between a lawyer and his client.
Despite that, the cameras kept running. They were controlled by staff from Spanish security company UC Global. A group of employees from the company eventually blew the whistle on the spying.
Hicieron unas declaraciones.
They made statements and provided a large volume of material linked to what amounted to espionage by the company by means of cameras and hidden microphones inside the embassy, information which was shared with third parties in the US.
Mr. Martinez was also one of the lawyers spied on. He pieced together evidence revealing UC Global's owner, former Spanish Navy Marine David Morales, ran a comprehensive surveillance operation on Assange and his guests between 2015 and 2018, allegedly on behalf of Washington.
Mr.
Morales openly told his employees that he was collaborating with US intelligence services.
Assange and his guests were repeatedly promised the embassy's CCTV system was not being shared and no audio was being recorded. That was a lie. UC Global hid a bug in the base of this meeting room fire extinguisher, and another in a female bathroom where Assange and his lawyers met to avoid surveillance.
Llevamos tiempo
Mr. Morales has denied installing listening devices in the embassy, telling Spanish media WikiLeaks must have placed them.
It is incredibly troubling that our secret and privileged legal conversations with Julian Assange were recorded and apparently handed to the US authorities. This is one of the most fundamental principles of protecting attorney-client relationships, that we are able to have confidential and private meetings to discuss legal strategy.
Jennifer Robinson and another Australian lawyer, Melinda Taylor, were also spied on. This is a UC Global report summarising everyone who visited Assange in March 2018. Melinda Taylor's name can be seen in an entry for March 6. And this email from Mr. Morales in September 2017 asks staff to focus on a group of Assange's visitors, including Jennifer Robinson.
The spying that was undertaken of our legal meetings in the embassy with Julian Assange would have been incredibly useful to the United States in giving them advance notice of our very sensitive legal conversations about protecting Julian from US extradition.
What we need to really drive home to governments is the importance of that privacy in between that Australian citizen and their lawyer, because it goes to the heart of the justice system. If you don't have that protection, you can't have proper advice.
The US Justice Department and the CIA declined to respond. Dylan Welch, ABC News.
Pumping out some weird shit.
Richie is a technology expert who works for global surveillance watchdog Privacy International. We're trying to detect a portable device that can spy on phones in the area.
So the fact that we're getting correct country codes and a wide variation in network codes from the same tower is really quite interesting.
Well, that suggests that it's trying to hoover up as many different network signals as possible.
Exactly. Our phones in our pockets would certainly be able to pick up signals from this.
The device that Richie's talking about is an IMSI catcher. It's a secret police surveillance tool that's used to monitor thousands of phones at a time. When it's switched on, it takes a record of any phone in the area and can intercept their messages and calls. In other Western countries, the authorities are open about their use of IMSI catchers, but in the UK, we don't know who's using them or why, so we're going in search of them across London.
We've heard that police are using IMSI catchers to keep track of large demonstrations, so we come to the middle of London to the biggest anti-austerity march in years to see if they're using the technology.
We met up with Richie at the protest.
How's it going?
His equipment can scan and detect IMSI catchers in the area.
So it's kind of like a sonar. If we're closer to it, it'll say on the software and it'll let us know whether or not we're hotter or colder.
Exactly. IMSI catchers are hard to detect because they pretend to be mobile phone towers. Our scanner let us take a close look at all the towers in the area.
So what we found here is another tower that is a British tower, but doesn't appear to be tied to any given network. We hopefully will now try and move closer to the tower itself and move through the crowd and maybe set up in front of the crowd to see if we can see it move by us. Oh, there's 77 now has showed up.
There it is.
It's one of the strongest towers. It's not the strongest tower, but it is one of the strongest towers.
So it's back.
Seems to be.
So somewhere around us is Tower 77.
It'd be extremely useful to the police operating an IMSI catcher in the area, as they'd simply be able to hoover up the communications and listen in on phone calls and text messages and data without any real effort at all.
Our scanner had detected signs of an IMSI catcher moving through the protest, but we couldn't pinpoint it. We decided to ask the police.
I was wondering if you know what an IMSI catcher is, or an IMSI grabber, or a stingray?
Stingray?
Yeah.
Like a shark?
I was just wondering if any of you know what an IMSI catcher is? What's your answer to the question? Why won't you answer the question?
I can neither confirm or deny that.
So you have heard of it?
Wow, I didn't say that.
Oh, wow, okay.
Do you know what it is?
I can't confirm or deny.
Why can't you confirm or deny?
Because it's beyond my pay grade.
But you do know what it is. You've heard the name before.
Enjoy your afternoon, and you too.
Clearly, some of the officers knew what we were talking about. We issued 48 Freedom of Information requests to police forces all over the UK, but they all refused to give us a straight answer of whether they were using IMSI catchers. We wondered if IMSI catchers were being used in other parts of London.
All right, let's scan some towers.
Yeah, that one's very strong. Well, what we can see here from the signal strength from this both Vodafone and O2 towers are that we're pretty much on top of a cell phone tower.
They're really close to us, right?
We've the maximum signal strength possible.
Down here, what we can see is the public entrance to Parliament. So down there, they've got scanners, they've got police officers, and we know that when we hold the phone just over here,
out over the wall,
the signal is at its strongest, right? At the strongest it can possibly be, 47. So that means that the signal is almost certainly coming from this part of the building over here.
Whatever we found in Westminster, it wasn't public knowledge. The House of Commons told us there were no signal boosters stationed there.
Trying to get the authorities to speak to us on the record about surveillance has proved very difficult because there's a real lack of transparency. But there is one person who's challenging this culture of secrecy, and that's the MP, David Davis. We found strong indications of IMSI catchers in various locations around London. Do you think that's a cause for concern?
Well, yes, it is. I think IMSI catchers, by definition, hoover up. It's like a hoover, collect everything up, and so it's a matter of concern generally, and particularly if there's a lot of them in London, where vast numbers of people against whom there can be no suspicion and will be hoovered up in them.
What would you say to people who say that the storage of their data is something they don't need to worry about because they're not breaking the law?
Eventually, somebody will misuse it. It won't necessarily be the government. It may be a fraudster finds it. And so what I don't want to see is that we've got all this apparatus in place, we can do nothing about it, and then it all goes wrong. What my job to do is to warn the public of what might go wrong so that they actually don't take this actually rather daft attitude of nothing to hide, nothing to fear.
We took David to the spot where we'd found signs of an IMSI catcher.
There was a very strong signal coming specifically from just this area here, which strongly suggested that there was a mobile phone base station or possibly an IMSI catcher in place right here.
I mean, I could think of a legitimate reason for it. You know, if you want, bear in mind the same sorts of signals come out from things designed to jam mobile phones, to prevent bombs going off, all that sort of thing. So there may be a reason. On the other hand, it's very close to Parliament. And so if it really is an IMSI catcher, it could actually read the phone of members of Parliament.
Members of Parliament aren't briefed on how IMSI catchers are used, and the police refused to tell us on national security grounds. So we went to find the companies that sold them.
And now the latest releases, 2015.
When countries go shopping for surveillance tech, this is where they come. Milipol in Paris, one of the biggest state security expos in the world. There are hundreds of companies here who stand to make a lot of money from the deals they sign. And we've come along to see what's on offer.
Exhibitors and visitors come to this Milipol exhibition. We try to match business meeting between exhibitors and visitors.
So the state representatives will meet somebody from the supplier, maybe a security supplier, and they'll go into one of these booths and cut a
use this
deal.
area to get their business meeting.
I was just wondering if maybe you could tell me a little bit about your work and you're not allowed to speak to media. Oh, you don't do media. Is there anybody I could speak to here about? No? Okay, sure, thanks. Can you tell us at all about what your company does, or? No? Okay. All right.
Not everybody wanted to talk to us, but then we found what we were looking for.
Hi there, I'm Ben, I'm a reporter for Vice News. I was just wondering if you could maybe tell me a little bit about some of your equipment and some of the capabilities that you have here.
Okay, so the first one that we've got here is what we call story cache. It's a merging between the IMSI data and the video streams, meaning that if you have any scene with any criminal activity, we will gather the IMSI and IMEI data and we will merge it into the video file as a metadata. So it can be either in your pocket, in a car, in in any device of this kind, which looks like an electrical distribution box. You have at the same time the camera and the place for the catcher and the jammer.
So everyone on that street, it'll collect their phone IMSI number and deliver it to you, whoever's in shot of the video.
We just introduced yesterday this new development.
Wow. Once a government or a law enforcement agency has bought it, then it's really up to them how they use it. There are all kinds of ways that they might decide to deploy it, that, you know, existing within their legal framework, obviously. I know that one of the things that people sometimes criticize about IMSI catchers is that sometimes innocent people are caught up by their use. Do you have any safeguards to prevent that from happening?
Well, as far as our job is to provide to the law enforcement agencies the technology to do their job. Well, the way they use it depends on the regulation of their country.
Can you give me an idea of what kind of cost it would be on the market?
It's about 35,000 euro.
Is it available commercially as well? For specifically, I guess, these two items, which seem to be your sort of flagship items? Or is it's purely...
No, there is a real commercial business of this. I mean, the tendency at the moment and the last day events show that we need to have this.
But for private investigators, I guess, or for private individuals?
Not private investigators. I don't think they can afford to pay these things. Plus, the use is really dedicated to governmental forces.
Yeah.
Using the IMSI data is something which is very touchy. So it's more for the investigators, official investigators.
Can you tell us if you've ever sold anything to the UK before?
I cannot disclose, of course, anything about our customer, but well, we got very good relation with UK companies and probably with UK enforcement agencies.
We asked Philippe's colleague about the company's UK clients for their other equipment.
Birmingham, UK.
Birmingham in the UK is using it.
It's been used in Thames Valley Police, Oxford.
Wow.
Merseyside Police, so, Liverpool. Leicester Police.
It's very popular in the UK then.
Yeah, we have some good clients.
But there was something else that caught our attention at Millipol. Concern over a growing black market for surveillance tech they were providing.
How much of a concern is it for you and for other developers and manufacturers that there are companies in China that are also making this but are selling it to private individuals, not just to law enforcement?
It's a very big problem, I mean, because actually we got many, private businesses that they simply import from China and then resell to ordinary public, and they only put a note on their website that says selling this jammer is against the law, but they are not considering that also importing that kind of stuff and making it publicly available is actually against the law. I mean, law enforcement equipment does not tolerate any public advertising. We continuously research and develop new systems, and we try not to disclose too much information, because that kind of information could be used not only to reverse engineer our systems, but also to find a way to fight against them. And we are providing the good guys with tactical advantage.
We wondered where the criminals really could get their hands on IMSI catchers. And what if we'd actually found one that didn't belong to the state? We decided to try and buy one.
So I've been talking to this guy who seems to be selling IMSI catchers pretty openly via an online marketplace. I sent him a few emails pretending to be a consultant acting for a wealthy client, and he's just sent me back 3 videos of his IMSI catcher working. Now, I haven't told him anything about my client or his business, so I could be anybody. A criminal trying to obtain private messages or financial information or medical records. He told us the IMSI catcher he wants to sell to us can give us location tracking, signal jamming, maybe even call and message interception.
We can switch on the power. Now you can see the power is switched on. Now we start the scanning work. We tap start.
It's $20,000, but we're not actually going to buy it. Instead, we're going to Skype him and see if he'll agree to the sale, knowing that we're not law enforcement.
I brought my editor along to stand in as my client.
Hi, is that Edward? Hi.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, Will.
How are you? Hi there. I'm Will.
Fine, thank you.
Hello. This is my client, Kevin.
Hi, how are you?
May I ask, obviously I'm representing a private company, and I have a certain concern that you'll be sending something to Britain. Do you think that will get to me okay?
Yeah, we can, because our company started many years ago in the business of manufacturing the mobile signal repeaters, repeaters to boost the signal. It's a radio frequency equipment, so we claim it's a repeater.
Are you selling equipment to many other places around the world?
We worked first with Russia, and then Israel, and also some African countries and South America. That's no problem at all.
I just wanted you to reassure us that you would be able to make arrangements for us, because we're not police, we're not from the state.
You need to assure us that you will use it legally. Yeah. And we make arrangements according to your requirements. That's no problem.
Great. Yeah, I'm going to go back and talk to my client now, and then I'll be in touch with you over email. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Great to speak to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We brought in Richie from Privacy International to show him what we'd found.
Where is he based?
He says he's based in Hong Kong.
But our device can catch the phone number, the phone number directly. It's like a spy device. It can catch around 1,200 numbers per minute.
Bye-bye.
So he obviously knows the implications of these devices, and he obviously has at least some awareness of how they can be used, how they can be misused, and yet is still willing to sell to a registered company, private individuals, investigators. I mean, that's just... There obviously is a market, and there obviously is a willingness to supply private people with this capability.
And what does it mean when this kind of sophisticated surveillance technology is placed in the hands of ordinary people?
It becomes a free-for-all. This is at the whim of an individual who wants to turn it on at any moment in time and isn't accountable to anybody and can do whatever they want with it.
The surveillance tech industry is worth billions, and as fear of terrorism increases, business is booming.
How would you feel if you knew that the police were spying on your phone tonight, and they were tracking your location, that they were using a sophisticated piece of technology to do so?
It's all well. At the end of the day, I'm here tonight to peacefully protest. The mosque is part of the, that's because of the way they treat us. I'm not here to cause any trouble. We're just being infringed upon every step of the way. It's getting worse and worse. The recent bills passing, they can keep our internet history for up to a year in case the police want to investigate. It's just another invasion of privacy.
Clearly, this equipment has a role to play in counter-terrorism, but its engineers can't stop it from being used for other things. And pushing back is a growing movement of citizens who don't want their privacy invaded by governments or anyone else.